Well, good evening, everyone. This is John Craig.
And this is Sandy.
And it's good to be with you again on this Tuesday evening for Walking in Spirit and Truth. You can see that right there on our screen, in case you forgot.
In case you forgot. Yep, you're right here.
She did that for me.
I did.
Hey, we're glad that you're with us this evening. We got some great things we're going to be talking about, some updates for you, and a great word for you to dig in and chew on and have some things to chew on for the rest of the week. Maybe help spur your study in the Word. So it's a good evening.
I agree. It's a good evening. It's a good evening to be here. And we're so glad that you've joined us. And as he said, we are John and Sandi Craig, and we pastor a congregation here in Amarillo, Texas, named Life of Worship. And we meet on Shabbat, of course, on Saturdays. We have our Torah study at 2 p.m. Central, and we have our regular service at 5 p.m. Central. And our Torah study is on Zoom. You can always send us an email, and we'll get you in there. And our regular service is on YouTube Live. You can go to our channel, Life of Worship Amarillo, or type in John and Sandi Craig, subscribe, and click the bell so you always know what's going on.
Put that notification on so you always know where it's at, what's going on, and when we go live. So, yeah.
Yes, that's important.
It is. It is. So, well, shall we hit some things on the report?
Do you want to hit some things on the Craig report?
I think we need to hit some things on the Craig report.
All right. Well, I think there's... By the way it looks, I would say there's probably news out there that people need to hear. Me too, probably. So
there's lots of news. We'll try to hit just a couple highlights.
All right, stay tuned.
All righty then. So we got some things we're going to be talking about this evening. And as you know, if you've been paying attention, if you're one of the ones that continues to watch mainstream media, you'll know that the mainstream, which I don't, I just pick up the little snippets and reports everywhere, and I don't necessarily pay attention to mainstream media. I don't have the time to do that. So little snippets, different type of reports, but you're going to be hearing all about the rhetoric and what an evil thing that happened on January the 6th when a handful of people went into the Capitol building, and that some people died. And to let you know what's going on, there's been a little bit of gaslighting going on, if you haven't figured that out yet. So what's really the truth that took place? Let's put some of the timeline down and how the events transpired. Early in the morning, where there were reports that Antifa characters dressed in Trump outfits arrived on buses with escorts into Washington, D.C. There were people in the streets with loudspeakers saying, we are going to be having a meeting at such time at the Capitol. And at 10 o'clock, I think it was a 10 o'clock meeting, they gathered and they were putting together their game plan of what they were going to do. It was all choreographed, by the way. And then they said that they would be, shall we say, invading the Capitol at 1 o'clock. That was their goal. And they were dressed up as Trump supporters. They were ready to go. They had weapons prepared, which are big old whatever weapon sticks. They were actually delivering those weapons through a window of the Capitol building on the lower levels. So how did they get those weapons inside? And they were passing them to the outside. And then at 1 o'clock is when they began to attack the police that were at the barriers. And if all different things, the police only had about 20 officers on that side of the Capitol. They had a large number of police on another part of the Capitol, but on that part they only had about 20, which seems to be very little considering that they had plenty of heads up. Now the FBI turned around and said, "Look, here's a warning that there's going to be some type of insurrection, some type of violence that's going to take place. Be ready, be aware." And of course, somebody gave a stand down order to the police. And of the person that was in charge, the officer that was in charge of that has now committed suicide. So at 1 o'clock, well, what was going on at that point in time? President Trump was still speaking at the ellipse, or the eclipse, I think is what they call it, or the ellipse, something like that, over by the White House. And he had arrived for his speech about an hour late. Well, he was still speaking at 1 o'clock. He was still speaking at 1:03. In fact, he spoke until about 1:12, 1:06 to 1:12 that afternoon. But on time, just as the Antifa had planned, they began to push back, punch officers, began to create a riot there at the doors of the Capitol. They started pushing on the barriers, and then, as if on command, the officers just pulled the barriers back. And these Antifa characters, they were dressed up. Oftentimes you can recognize them not only in the colors that they were wearing, but even though many of them had Trump outfits on, but by their pink gas masks that they had. So their filtered masks had a couple pink filters on each side of the cheeks. And they continued to go, and with those batons and sticks or rods that they had actually handed out through the Capitol windows, they started beating out some windows. They started breaking some windows. They started causing some issues there. There were actually Trump supporters that were up there with them and started pulling them down away from the windows so they would stop creating mayhem and property damage. But as if on command, the police opened the doors and the people began to walk forward and welcome them all into the Capitol building. So, but what was still going on the other side of Washington, about a mile away? Well, President Trump was ending his speech, and he told them, "All right, let's all walk on over to the Capitol, and peacefully let's let our voices be heard about what happened on November 3rd, and that they need to know that we have a voice for the fraud that took place, and that they should do the right thing, that they should have courage and stand up and know that there's a lot of people supporting them, and to have courage." Well, the whole thing choreographed. These rioters went inside. They broke some windows in the course of things. There was one young lady, Ashley Babbitt, I think is what her name was, and she was after Antifa had broken the window, she started to crawl through a window. She was shot apparently in the neck, and died right there in the Capitol. And then the next thing that took place, so we also found out there were some other people that died. One person was a police officer that had some type of complication. One officer died of a stroke. There were some other complications with some other patriots that were there. I think a couple heart attacks. So these weren't people that were dying from the violence. These are people that were dying from other natural causes. So let me get this cat out of the way. So this is what's happened at the Capitol. This is what the whole press is talking about. These are the problems that need to be addressed, and the truth will come out. But in the meantime, 92 some odd people, it may be more than that right now, have been arrested, or they have warrants out for their arrest. And many of those were unjustly. Now, we also found out there was a leader of Antifa that was there. And of course, he was right in the middle of everything, telling people to move forward, telling people to go in. And come to find out, yeah, he was arrested, but he walked away with no charges. So how is that? But in the meantime, on the outside, there was also a character who had happened to crawl up on the scaffolding that was outside the Washington Capitol. And he was giving instructions, trying to rile up the people, saying, "Hey, this is your house. Go inside. It is time to take back this country, take back," and riling up the crowd and seeing if he could get as many people to be charging in. Well, it comes to find out is that the video showing that people that went in, they were tourists. They were taking pictures of the statues. They were taking selfies with police officers there. They were in a good mood. They were looking around. Many of them didn't even know what had already happened. And after all these people had been going in and these things were taking place, what happens? Well, the crowd that was over there with President Trump started to arrive, and people like Alex Jones and some others were getting up there saying, hey, let's not have another Kent State. Do not engage with what's going on. Do not participate in any type of violence, and telling the people to chill out. Of course, President Trump came out and said, hey, we need to be peaceful. Everybody just disband and go on home. So that's what happened at the Capitol. The timing of it is that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are trying to bring up charges against President Trump. In fact, it's come out even right now that they are pondering, and there may have already be indictments against President Trump, Donald Trump Jr. and Rudy Giuliani for being part of stirring things up and creating sedition at the Capitol. So this is all fresh information. This is stuff that's actually happening right now. But now what do? Well, they've locked down the Capitol. There is an emergency, state of emergency in Washington, D.C. They've set up a fence all the way around the Capitol building. They've dispatched several thousand, was it like 6,500 true National Guards that were there. They were bringing in more into the Capitol. Others have been being called up across the nations. Some of them said immediately report. They weren't even to go home to talk to their family or anything. Some were picked up wherever they were working by military police. So something is up. These reservists are being called in because there are all sorts of different things that are taking place. So what do we know? We don't know a lot about it because there's a silence. There is silence on it. But I'm going to go over here to the Hal Turner radio show report and bring up something that he brought up today, and it's called multiple claims that Chinese invasion force landing in Canada to commence physical invasion of USA. Now that's the headline on it, but he says, he gives a caveat. He says, I cannot get any confirmation whatsoever from any source in government about any of this. But he said that he was receiving multiple points and enormous reports that an enormous force of 250,000 Chinese troops were arriving in Canada with heavy equipment and even nuclear capability for a physical land invasion of the United States. Now, we've talked about that here on this report before, talking about the Chinese troops that were already in Canada in particular locations, as well as in Mexico. So this report actually is running parallel with those prior reports. And he says, I'm receiving additional and multiple reports that all U.S. military members, including reservists, are being urgently told to drop whatever you're doing and report for duty. The sheer number of such emergency call-ups seems staggering. Reports are coming in from all over the country about these call-ups. And he goes on to say that I do not have confirmation about any mass Chinese troops arriving anywhere in Canada, but given the sheer volume of these reports and the wide geographic area from which they are coming in, I am choosing to tell all of you. And he goes on and actually lists the details of where he was getting that information. So he said, this last message struck me and as a deliberate disinfo. And he says one of it was American civilians need to prepare, seek shelter, do not engage the invaders, let U.S. military who are trained and better equipped to deal with them, obey all orders given by the emergency broadcast system, do not engage, let us military deal with the invaders. So he said, this strikes me as a deliberate disinfo. No rational person would tell the Americans to hide while our country is invaded. American citizens are the most heavily armed populace on earth. My advice is simple. And if you see armed troops from a foreign army coming into this country in mass, get the word out and fast. He says, and tell as many locals as you can to grab their guns and meet up. And wherever they're going to meet up, engage them by ambush attack, shoot first, shoot to kill, arm. Now I'm not advocating any of this. I'm reporting. What I'm simply is reporting. You look into it. You decide. He says armed foreign military troops are to be engaged and destroyed everywhere they are encountered inside the USA. Further details if they can't become available. So we're waiting for further details. This is kind of interesting in one sense. It's disconcerting to me to hear that this might actually be happening, but it reminds me of the Henry Groover and the Dmitri Duduman prophecies, which says when America's focus inwardly by an insurrection caused by the communists, that America would be invaded. And so I'm alert, very much alert at this point in time, because we are certainly under attack from enemies, domestic and foreign right now. So my call out to President Trump is to uphold his constitutional oath, where he swore that oath to protect this nation from and protect the Constitution from enemies, foreign and domestic. Wanted to bring up something else that runs parallel with this right now, and it's because these insurrectionists that invaded the Capitol, and I'm not talking about the Trump patriots, I'm talking about the Antifa, the BLM, and all of these that have been part of it, who were identified, and that this was a plot in order to cause Trump supporters to look evil, to look bad. And that's why we have all these reports that are going out right now that anybody that's a Trump supporter should pay the penalty for being a supporter, and possibly should be arrested and put into a camp and re-indoctrinated. So that's pretty serious. They've been saying this for quite a while, if you've been paying attention this last year. But here's this report over at the Gateway Pundit that says, who is behind the planned armed march on Capitol Hill? And is it a deep state plot? And it goes on to say, we are urging you not to attend. Think about this. The far left tech giants took away President Trump's ability to communicate freely to the American public following the storming of the U.S. Capitol by Trump supporters, Antifa, and other individuals. And I would simply say, don't think there was a lot of storming going on. But as it goes on to read, it says the Gateway Pundit reported on these planned protests yesterday. And Aaron Katarsky reported armed protests are being planned at all 50 state capitals from 16 January through at least 20 January, and the U.S. Capitol from 17 January through 20 January, according to the FBI bulletin obtained by ABC. Now, is this true or not? It was obtained by ABC. So it could simply be disinformation. I'm simply here reporting, you decide. A group is calling for storming state, local, and federal government courthouses and administrative buildings in the event President Trump is removed prior to the inauguration day. Per an FBI bulletin obtained by ABC, the FBI has received information about an identified armed group intending to travel to Washington, D.C. on 16 January. They have warned that if Congress attempts to remove POTUS via the 25th Amendment, a huge uprising will occur, according to a bulletin obtained by ABC. I really think that this is a disinformation campaign. I think it's meant to cause people to be stirred up and to join in. But hey, wait, there's more. And it says, for the record, these armed protests, in quotation marks, in the coming days are not sanctioned by the Trump campaign. So that's in bold. We need to make sure everybody understands that. We're looking more into who is behind this movement. And so there's this nondescript flyer for the event of all different things. And I wish I could show it to you, but I'm on a different computer, so I can't screen share. But you can go to the gatewaypundit.com and look up the article yourself, who is behind the planned armed march on Capitol Hill. And there's a picture of a nondescript flyer for the event. Well, let me describe it to you. It's red and yellow. Now picture this. What flag out there is red with yellow print on it? Well, I seem to remember it happens to be China. Well, let's kind of go down a little bit further, and under the armpit, there's actually the Statue of Liberty down at the bottom right-hand corner, and under the armpit is what? 3 yellow stars. Seems like it's very interesting that the Chinese flag has 3 yellow stars. And according to this, it says, when democracy is destroyed, refuse to be silenced. Armed march on Capitol Hill and all state capitals. Come armed at your personal discretion, January 17, 2021 at 12 p.m. Washington Memorial to the White House and all 50 state capitals. Over 200 years ago, our founding fathers fought for the rights and liberties of this nation. Don't let their efforts be in vain. Demand freedom, end the corruption, stand up for liberty. And it's in red and yellow and some other like dark blue in some of the letters. So notice that there's no organizing group listed on the flyer. That's weird. And the Sun posted a social media post on Parler by Kenneth Brooks at Kenneth Brooks 1911, who posted the flyer. Kenneth included the hashtag Boogaloo in his announcement. That is suspect in itself. The Boogaloo group is a mysterious group that popped up in the last few years since Trump became president. Although it does not appear to be a large group, its name pops up frequently in liberal media reports. Are people really that stupid to put Boogaloo in their social media posts? So that's what makes this all questionable. This is what makes things, very suspect. And it should be noted that they are gathering at the same place where Antifa met on January 6th, right before the U.S. Capitol was stormed by Antifa. And there was, let me put it this way. There were some, and please forgive me, I don't want to upset anybody, but there were also some QAnon supporters, Q supporters that were mixed in that group because things have been going on the boards, on the QAnon boards that have actually said, we're going to go down there and we're going to invade the Capitol, or you need to be ready. And they're advocating for certain, to rise up against what's going on and take physical action. So I just want everybody to be cautioned. Just realize that the QAnon boards have, even though it's got stuff in it that has allowed a lot of people to be red pilled. But keep in mind that there's been information and disinformation in there. It's all about causing people to be stirred up, thinking somebody would be doing something. I think the best action that we need to be taking is that one, that we don't participate in anything where they're advocating violence. We don't need to be participating in anything where they're saying we're going to run on these Capitol buildings. We'll run on the governor's mansions. We're not going to be doing that. This is some of the things that have been taking place. In fact, there's been reports that violence has been, and mischief, mayhem has been going on in about 5 different states, governor's mansions. These are things that we certainly don't advocate at all. But here's one of the things that I do want to point out is that in the midst of all this, we do still have rights as Americans. We still have rights to protect. We still have rights to stand up for. And where does that start? Well, it starts in our own homes. It starts in the cities that we live in. It starts with our counties, going to our local sheriff's department, making sure that people in our cities where we live know where we stand, know what we stand for, and that we stand for that which is law and order, and to stand for justice, and that we're not going to be and that is righteous justice. We don't want anything made up or contrived, and we don't want people to be targeted. The other thing is then we have our state houses and state senates and our governors. Here's the thing. I don't know what's going to take place next week on January 20th. I don't know how it's all going to play out, but I do know this, because we are the United States of America with a small s, that we, having states' rights, need to be making sure that our local representatives are representing us in our state legislatures, and that our governor knows where we stand on these things, and that we're not here for violence, but we do expect our legislators and our governor to stand up for our rights. And when things are being passed in Washington, D.C., that our states should insulate ourselves from the centralized federal government, and that we should protect our rights. And being in Texas, I expect Governor Abbott to stand up for our rights. I expect my representative here in the Panhandle of Texas to be standing up for our rights. Even my state senator that, who is, in my opinion, is a rhino. But nevertheless, I think we need to make sure that they hear our voice, and that they also understand that there is another election that's going to be coming around, that they need to voice our opinion and our positions, and that we as an American people need to be standing loud. That's what speaks to them. And So let's pay attention, continue to watch what's going on, but continue to prepare for what's happening. You need to be prepared that if there is an invasion of the United States, you're going to need make sure your gas tanks are full. You're going to need to make sure you've got extra fuel on hand. You need to make sure that you have preps. You need to make sure that your weapons are clean, that you have a way to defend your food, and you need to have some food stocks. You need to be ready. And everything I keep hearing that's echoed is that we could actually be having possibly a 10 to 14 day lockdown across the nation. And it could be as much as 30 days. Now, however they label it, however they place it, one reason or another, that we may end up being we may have to shelter in place. We may not have access to our bank accounts. We may not have access to our debit cards. We may not have access to anything to be able to go and buy, let alone the stores may be closed. So keep in mind that these things are happening. This thing is, I use the word fluid. Things are changing, and things are changing quickly. We try to get as much information. We put it together to where it somewhat makes sense. I see one side and people's opinion saying, President Trump is going to leave the White House quietly. I've heard other things that President Trump is got things that are working, and that he may not be leaving the White House. So I'm one that has not given up hope yet, in spite of the fact that the elections have occurred, in spite of the fraud that not being addressed, in spite of what happened on January 6th, but that there are still things that are working, in spite of what's been going on with the Supreme Courts and the courts that are still receiving challenges and are in the midst of challenges throughout the land regarding the elections. So do not give up hope. There are things that have happened overseas, even that Italy has provided information that they, as recognizing that they are an ally of the United States, that their satellite, which was being used to transfer information from the latest Georgia runoff, where they took information in and changed the votes in Italy and sent that information back, where it changed the tally of those votes, even in Georgia. And why did they do that? And why were the same machines being used? These are questions that I have. And the information that I was able to pick up is that they needed to go in and have them do the same things again, so they could track down and get some of the final pieces of evidence together. So what does that mean? I don't know. Has President Trump passed or signed the Insurrection Act? We don't really know for sure, but several sources have said, yeah, it was over the weekend he did, and that it is being used in a particular way in the swing states where the votes were in question, where they could go in and collect the evidence, secure the votes, the ballots, the voting machines, and all of that. We don't know. This thing is going to have to wash out. It's going to have to work itself out, and we may not even know anything. They're silencing voices. They've been silenced on the social media. Anybody that's speaking out about these things and trying to bring truth forward are being silenced. These are all things that we're concerned about, making sure that we can get this information out. Also, there's one other thing I wanted to point out, and I'm going to wrap this up, and that is that all of these alternative news sites, by the way, Mozilla Firefox has come out and said that they are going to block all alternative news sites from their internet platform. And so I recommend changing the platform that you use. If you use Mozilla Firefox, do not use Google at all. Do not even allow one search be done on Google. You're not going to get true search from them anyway. Use a browser like the Brave browser. That's what I use. And by the way, it'll move faster for you because it takes out all these pop-up ads and all these different ads that run in there. And I like using the Brave browser, and I like using DuckDuckGo as my search engine. That's just me personally. And also what I've heard is that these alternative media locations, that they're going to cause, how you type in the www, like www.gatewaypundit.com, they may be taking those out, and the only way that you'll be able to reach their sites is if you know the number address, which is, like 62.922.101 point whatever, you need to find out what your favorite news sites are and what their internet protocol address is. And I need to find out, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that. So if I can find out that information, I will pass it on, because I want to put them all on a list so that I can still find my favorite sites if they do a media blackout, if they do an internet blackout, and I'm still able to access information. So that's where I want to leave it this evening. That's a lot of information to be chewing on, maybe some things to research out for yourself. Am I saying, now, here's the thing. Some of these things kind of fit in the rumor position. Some of these things are actual things that are taking place. You need to wade through the weeds, or however you want to say it. These are different things that we need to be paying attention to. Next week we could be saying, well, we were totally wrong and it went this direction. It's a crazy world right now.
Well, I have a few things.
Yeah.
First off, I have to go backwards and try to think of everything you said. Get off what you've told me. Stop buying at the big box stores. Don't do it anymore.
Yeah. Amazon.
Amazon, Walmart, Target. Get away from the big box right now and support your mom and pop. It may cost a little more, yes, but you need to start supporting local businesses only, because these other businesses are out to get you and destroy you anyway, because they're siding with someone else. And so I encourage you to do that. Also, get off the social media platforms that have banned our president and so many other conservative voices. Maybe you can use them temporarily, but start migrating. To get on.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Start migrating
now, because I know that I never say the name right. The alternative for Facebook, not
MeWe.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm already there. I'm there, and these other places, we need to be supporting these that are going to stop giving the false information. And then you said something about it, and it's really hard to know, because we're always told to defend the truth. And we know that it is said that you don't gather at the capitals, including the U.S. Capitol. But at the same point, if we didn't gather, wouldn't that be exactly, let's say that China did have an op and they were going to go take the capitals, that's exactly how they'd want it to be, is that no one would be there.
Well, and that's the thing.
So I don't know which side, because I can see both sides playing against us.
Can you see the psyop? This is a psyop.
So which should you do? Because wouldn't it be easiest if you told all the people to stay away, and then the other governments went in and took over every capital city?
Well, certainly that could be one point. The other thing is maybe go and with your camera record the events that are going on, because that's one of the things. That's how we found out what actually happened at the Capitol, is because of people like you and me took out their cell phones and videotaped things, and they were able to connect all of the different videotapes and saying, whoa, this is what took place. By the way, I did want to mention this. We talked about stores. One, do not, if at all possible, order from Amazon. There are other stores that you can go to that are online that can supply the same type of product and bypass Amazon. Go directly to people's websites.
First, try to do it in your own town.
Yeah, and then if you can't get in your own hometown because they've shut down a lot of places because of the COVID lockdowns, then
don't call it that, because of China virus.
And so go to other websites where it's owned by Americans that have product that sell American products. The other thing is if you've got a bank account at some of these large main banks, these are the banks that are locking out President Trump. He got locked out of all of his accounts, the campaign accounts, the store accounts. They locked him out. So move away from places like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase, and HSBC or whatever it is. And I'm sure there's some other banks that are super large national banks. Move to local banks, move to credit unions, move your information, your money to places that you can have locally. Support your local businesses if at all possible, and stay away from those banks. You start moving your money out of those banks that are controlling a lot of this, they're connected with China. They're connected with the city of London. They're trying to control all of our commerce here. Let's not give them any money anymore. Let's put it somewhere else that's going to support our local communities.
And here's another thing that you said. I know we just hit that, but you had talked about possibly we are encouraged to that the troops have been called out. There's two scenarios for the possibility that the troops have been called out. One is an invasion, and number two is that they actually would go gather up the evil stench of swamp creatures that reside in our Senate, in our House, in the United States, the federal level as well as your local levels. And one thing that bothers me is that they would only use the Insurrection Act to gather those in the swing states when every state but New York was won by President Trump. To me, you need to go through and sweep every state because Pelosi is not rightfully in office, nor are most of those others. It's all been done by this fraud that's gone on. And it is time. And I encourage, if the president would somehow hear, it is your duty to protect and defend the Constitution, as you said, from invaders inside our country and outside of our country. And you are the duly elected legal president if you count only those votes that were legal, well, especially and real. Let's get real with that. And not only that, is that if an invader is coming in and trying to change the very vestige of what this country is, you would defend it. It doesn't matter if they took an election by fraud or anything else fraudulently, it wouldn't matter what kind of justification they thought they had. You would not allow it to happen. So, Mr. President, and I've written him, guys, you should write him too, stand your ground and stay in office. Do not follow through and lay down to these evil forces that are out there. And yes, he is not our savior, but I will fight for this nation on my knees as well as physically if I can, as long as I can. And it's still Yahweh's our deliverer, our savior, and all of that. But I'm also a warrior. And I'm not only a spiritual warrior, but I also have been given the commission to take dominion and push the enemy back physically and spiritually in that manner. Because yes, what's happening and we see manifested here is a result of a spirit of spiritual warfare in the heavenlies, but it has manifested nonetheless. Therefore, it takes us to manifest our action and stand for righteousness. If it costs our life, isn't it that we would lay down our life for our brother? And isn't that where we're at? Aren't we at the place where Yah's word and truth and when we say justice, the reason we qualify justice is because justice means the laws on the books are the laws that they're following. And so justice is not always the right word, except for Yahweh's righteous justice, but doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. So sometimes saying doing the right thing doesn't seem to have the wordy impact of justice, but yet when you're in the nation, when you're in a place where there's crooked, evil things that are happening, it may be more apropos, a more appropriate word for us to use, but at least righteous justice. So you said several things, and my very name means defender of man. All my life, I have manifested my name in that it's important what you name your children, because those names, you speak that over your children or your friends or your husband or whomever or wife every time you say that name. And I am very much and have been always a defender of the innocent, out for truth and righteousness and justice. It's been my very name, and I've been doing it since I was little, no matter what the cost to my own person has been. And I'm still that way. And so this kind of thing, when I see evil, it affects me greatly, and I want to do something about it. And it has to stop. Mm-hmm.
And by the way, and we're not helpless, by the way. We have the ability to say no to the craziness that's out there. The liberty that we have can only be taken if we willingly give it up. And that's why I refuse to give up my liberty.
We don't even,
And-
we wear masks nowhere, no matter what the store says.
So
we walk in and walk out. If they do kick us out, which that's been very rare, we will do it. But what happens if we all do that? There is no law. There is no law. Therefore, it cannot be enforced.
Exactly. And so these store owners, by the way,
Toyota.
These store owners they're afraid. They're afraid of the health department. They're afraid of getting fined. And by the way, there are tools that are online, and I suggest going to Free Citizens?
Free.
We're gonna have to look that up. And there's actually a card that you could wear on a lanyard around your neck, and I don't have mine with me right now. And basically, it says I'm exempt from wearing a mask. And if somebody questions you, say, hey, you got to have a mask come in there. I said, well, no, I don't. I don't have to wear a mask.
You say, what sanction laws? And they can't answer.
And they say, well, you have to have a reason. And I said, well, yeah, I have lots of reasons why I'm not going to wear it. And
health reasons. One.
Say, I have a health reason. Well, what's that health reason?
They can't ask.
You can't ask, or guess what? I'm going to sue you for $75,000. So do you want to go through that?
Literally.
And they go, and immediately they'll back up.
Now, you may say, I don't have a health reason. Yes, you do.
You do.
Because breathing in the waste product of your breath,
80 plus bacterial colonies,
it will cause you to be sick, contract bacterial pneumonia or something else. It is a health issue.
Yes.
And if they refuse to read the card, then you present them with a lawsuit.
Yeah. And there's a form, and we have that I need to get scanned into the computer that we can get out. And where
literally you hand them when they do that.
You hand it, said, okay, well, here's this form. I need you to sign this form right now and put down the reasons. And you cannot, and by the way, they cannot discriminate against us and single us out and say, well, then you can't come in. I said, well, then you are discriminating against my rights. And that blows up a whole nother issue. And we need to get those scanned into a file, and we can email those to some folks.
I'm going to put the email that it's going to scroll across. Email us, and we will try to get that information to you.
Yeah. And because you have rights, you've got all sorts of different rights, and we want you to be able to be armed and ready. And by the way, this is what I also do, that on I think it was 2 occasions that I had to do this, that we were told that we couldn't come in without a mask. And at Walmart, I just walked on by. I'm not going to listen to the person sitting at the front door. But not Sandy. Sandy stopped. She said, I can't come in. They're not going to let me in without a mask. And I was like, okay, we're going to deal with it. And I called the store manager, the manager that was on duty, and they said, oh, we're so sorry. He shouldn't have done that. And see, what they're waiting is to see if someone's going to challenge them. So challenge them back.
Come on, people.
Yeah. And then there was another time the guy looked like he was going to chest butt me when I went into a major chain. Oh
my goodness. I'm sorry. Joe says that they're getting sores like herpes from their masks. Guys, that's disgusting.
It's like diaper rash around the mask.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I called up that manager at that local, it's actually a chain store office supply company, and I called up that manager.
No, it wasn't the office supply. It was the big one.
Yeah, it was
the big box.
It was Office Depot.
No, where you called when I was with you was Walmart.
I called Walmart, but I also called Office Depot because the guy looked like he was going to chest butt me. I said, I just need to find this. I'm going to get in and out. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to deal with this.
What did they say when you called?
And so I called and they said, we're so sorry. We're already changing our policy. That shouldn't have happened. We did have some people come in here and they were getting violent and threatening us. I said, I'm not going to be violent or threatened, but you have no right to make me wear a mask when there's no law and when it's going to hurt my health. Said, you don't have any right to push me around like that. And I said, I'll tell you what, I know a lot of people in Amarillo and I'll just spread the word. She said, oh, no, don't do that. Just come in. We'll make everything right. So it just takes a little boldness. People are willing to back down. and recognize, I think most people are recognizing that it has been quite a psychological operation on the American people to weaken our stance and to be pushed around. And
I don't know. I've been seeing people that weren't wearing masks now wearing masks.
And some of them are giving up. They're just like, I just don't want to deal with the confrontation.
Don't do that,
Don't
guys.
do that.
Deal with the confrontation.
Yes, deal with the confrontation.
Don't be a wimp.
We're supposed to be bold for those things that are right. And that's, I guess, if there's any type of message that we can portray, is be a people of courage. God's not given us a spirit of timidity, but of power, love, and a sound mind. I'm not talking about going after somebody with a baseball bat to enforce our right, but we need to be bold in our speech, ready in season or out to give a reason for the hope that's within us. And some of that hope has to deal with the practical day in, day out of our own rights, that because if Yeshua set us free, we're free indeed. And that it is for these reasons that we've been called to freedom. It is for these reasons that we've been made overcomers in this life, not to be pushed around by some operation out there, but to say, look, we know that we have these rights, and these are God-given rights. These rights are self-evident. And so there's a certain point in time you say, well, I think at the very beginning, we didn't know what was going on. And we started, we've told that story. Nobody knew what was going on back in February and March. And we're like, okay, let's, just get through this thing. But when it continued and it continued and continued, and you start looking at all of these things and the control that they learned that they could control the American people and the populations around the world with it, what happened? They just got more and more brutal. And we must say, no, we've had enough. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. You're not going to take even my oxygen away from me. So this is where we're at. And these are some things that we really are making a stand on, because these little things, if we give them up, it's just going to be more.
And since we've used my time, it's okay. There was news out there. I want to encourage you, because they are. If you should have 3 days supply of food and water, a minimum, just for natural disasters, if not more, and just be on cautious. Oh, look, here's our Shay. Shay, I miss you, girl. I need to hug you. Anyway, sorry, she's part of our family, and I hadn't seen her in a little bit of time, and so I had to say something. Anyway, I would encourage you to keep your gas tanks full, to make sure you have, if you can make sure you have food out, even up to 15 to 30 day supply. It doesn't have to be like kings. Also, be ready for power outages. I'm just telling you to prepare for the possibility. I'm not telling you it's going to happen, though these things have been out there as a possibility. And in the day and the hour in which we live, where everything is fluid and things are changing all the time, and we know that there's such vile evil out there against anyone who believes in truth and righteousness, we need to be prepared. So food and water, and if there is a shelter in place order that's ever given, or a lockdown, especially if you're in a city, where do you want to be? Are there families or a congregation that you need to be with? Then I would suggest you make your way there, or have your supply there. And if it is just you're ready to just be in your home, then that too. But we live in a day and an hour and a time when things are no longer like they once were. My hope and prayer, I saw one, again, it's just rumor. It's just rumor that Trump would set up a new government. I would love that. Constitutional, back to what it was in 1776. That would be amazing.
We need a purge. We need a purge. What's going on?
The purge needs to be. It's so huge.
So yes,
it's like flush that stuff down the toilet. Please.
I mean, if they could do anything, I can't believe I
said that.
Well, if they could do anything right now, is that President Trump does what we think he needs to do and purge those treasonous felons out of the Congress.
And stand his ground. Mm-hmm. All of America, and even the liberal people, that's why they fought so hard, know that he won the election.
Yeah.
So you know what? Stop. I just support him.
So I want to say this real quick, because I know we're running out of time. There is a website called www.freedomtaker.com. That's freedomtaker.com. And on there are some things that will give you courage regarding what basically it says is we need to understand that the freedom that we lose is what we voluntarily give up.
Mm-hmm.
And on there are some free download documents in Microsoft Word form, and they include a vaccine conditional acceptance, and that's like in quotes acceptance. You have to read it and take a look at it. There's a refusal of vaccines. These are, because I know how employers are requiring their people to go out and get that deadly shot. There's a refusal of medical testing, and that you can get a form for. There are for employers who try and coerce vaccination. So that's another form that you can pull down, and it'll give you some of the things that you have as your rights to refuse getting the vaccine. And by the way, more and more anecdotal evidence is coming out, of course, because it's not going to be in any other places, people dying from the first round of shots, but now the second round of shots are starting. So please be aware.
I still thought they were giving out the first round.
Yeah, well, they started back in the second week of December, starting giving that first Pfizer shot.
For some reason, I thought it would be like several months between those shots. I guess not.
No, and it's about a 3 to 4 week window, depending on what company is manufactured the shots. And by the way, there was something else that came out about those vaccinations, the CV-19 vaccinations, and that has to do with Pfizer was telling their employees. Now, this is on the rumor side, but they were telling their own employees, do not take the vaccine. So that makes me ponder. I'm looking for more evidence to back that one up, but I thought that was very interesting.
I guarantee, Leota, that those that are in power, if they had a shot, it was not a real shot.
Yeah, well, yeah, because Dr. Fauci forgot what side that they did the fake shot in.
Oh, it was this. Oh no, it was
because he was like my right arm, arm was sore for a little bit, but they on TV they did it on the left side, and then they said, oh yeah, it's just the reverse thing that happens on cameras, and it's reversed backwards, but the words behind them weren't reversed; they were actually always.
So don't be fooled.
Don't be fooled.
When you see people that have money and power, they're not getting the shots.
Joe Biden didn't get a second shot, by the way. They said the people that were watching the video.
They forgot to take off the cap.
They didn't take the cap off the end. And they never pushed down on the plunger. And then they were doing a lot of shots that were on TV, and they were putting it right up to the fabric of their clothes. Well, you don't give a shot through the fabric.
Through the fabric ever. So you wash it down with.
So why are they doing these things? That's my question. Why do they have to do this fake?
To try to coerce the people to go in, and so that they now become property and zombies and non-human with no religious leaning.
Well, yeah, because it wants to kill the God awareness in us. And then the other thing is the shot puts in the ability to reprogram ourselves, but it's waiting for even more software to reprogram ourselves as well for later injections.
And don't get the tests either, because there's nanobites at the end when they go through your nose. Guys, don't do it. If you've done it, pray that those are nullified. But if you do, I don't care if you are sick. Deal with it. The flu, flus and colds. You know what, people? We used to just deal with it at home. And we've become such a pansy society now. If we have a sniffle, we have to run to the doctor. I was raised, unless you're unconscious, bleeding to death, you don't go to the doctor. My mother, she was one of those. My brother would break his head open. He should get a piece of tape, butterfly it together, and maybe put his hair, and that was it. I'm of those beliefs too. And you don't go unless you are literally deathly sick. This cold and flu thing, we used to ride it out, and it is cold and flu season. And I want to remind you,
the CDC doesn't have any reported cold.
Did you know there's zero cold and flu by the CDC? Because it's all there. Oh, I have to tell you this.
It's the power of CV-19.
I have to tell you this. And
it just kills everything else.
We've known about this, and it was very upsetting. But where my niece works as an RN, she had somebody, and he died of a gunshot wound, And guess what? They put down the cause of death. COVID.
Hmm.
And then there was another who was in a car accident, and they brought her into the ER. Guess what he died of? COVID-19. The stats are so wrong. It's just more lies. And y'all know this. You've heard us before.
Yeah.
And if we've offended you, I'm sorry. And again, this is our personal opinion on things and personal ideas. It's not necessarily the way Messianic Lamb Network believes or you.
Yeah.
It's just I'm passionate about people speaking truth and at least keeping people informed. And you're not going to get diddly squat off of any mainstream channel, including Fox News. You have to find your news elsewhere. So please do your own research and
don't let people intimidate you. Just don't let them intimidate you.
But be ready in this day and this hour.
And let me put it this way. Don't let people bully you. You know, they talk about anti-bullying. Well, guess what? There's a certain point in time that we have our ducks in a row and we're ready to say, no, we're not going there. So, well, sorry, I didn't mean to take the whole show talking about these things, but hey, there's so many things that are taking place right now around us. So I hope it's been informative to you today, and I hope that you got some information, and I hope that you are inspired to encourage to stand up for what's right, to stand your ground, and to be ready, and to have a way to think about the things that are coming, and maybe some places to go research some more. And I hope that freedomtaker.com is a good place. There's another place, Lou Rockwell. He had some interesting information on his site, LouRockwell.com, LouRockwell.com, Lou Rockwell. And that we just have to realize that there's a lot of theater going on around us. But we still can live in spite of the theater.
That's right. I also want you to please like the show, give us a thumbs up or something else or something, and let people know, spread the word if you like the program. And you can also go to our YouTube channel and look at all our archives of our services and things like that. I'm actually thinking about how to possibly get our tour portions up there and archived as well. We'll see if I can get that done. But there's a lot to watch, a lot of videos to watch, and hopefully be blessed by. And it's not all news. Very little of it's news. This will be the third news portion that's on there. And that's it.
And that's that's our YouTube channel for Life of Worship Amarillo.
Right. And Shay, I hope to get to see you this week. And I miss you, sweetie. I miss you, Joe.
Yeah, we miss you, Shay.
And for all those, our new friends, it's so good to know you. And thank you for watching and tuning in. And we will get to part 3 of Shield and Buckler next week. And I pray, y'all willing.
Wow. I'm telling you, what will it be like next week? That's all
you know
I
what? I've got an idea. Maybe I should start the program and you finish
and then
it.
finish it. We could do that. We got to make sure we get the study in.
I probably would do the same thing with the teaching, though, that you do with the news, so it wouldn't work. Anyway, stay tuned for the next chapter this Thursday. Joe just reminded me that we are going to be talking about fear. Mark is going to take the lead, and he's got some interesting things in comparing the fear that we see in society today to the witch trials, the Salem witch trials, and those things. It's going to be a really interesting show, so you want to stay tuned for that. Anyway, we are blessed. If you were blessed too, think about going to our YouTube's our website, www.lifeofworshipamarillo.org, and click the donate button. We're always looking for new partners to join us and help us get the word out. It's real easy and simple to do. And that is it. So until the next time we see you, we want to say thank you so much and blessings to you and shalom.